My heart is broken. So the other day, I came across someone selling comics for 50 cents, and I ended up buying a bunch of them. Now, most of these were just run fillers, which I was excited to add to my collection because I love filling runs. But there were a few minor keys, and I'm going to show those to you now, starting off with this one, Spectacular Spider-Man number 87. Now, the reason that this book is significant is because it's the first time that Peter Parker ever reveals his secret identity to someone. And of course, as you can see, it's to the Black Cat. And so I was super interested in reading this story and finding out how that all came about. So I opened up the book to find out that the story starts out with Spider-Man and Black Cat already in love. And so Spider-Man is ready to take her home for the first time. And so they take off and she's all excited. She's playing with her hair and just so giddy. And then they finally get to his apartment and she steps in and it's just a regular apartment. And she's like, wait, I don't get it. You're joking, right? And he's like, huh? And she says, lover, you're Spider-Man. Why would you be in a dump like this? Don't you have a special fortress or cave or something like this? This is just a regular apartment. And so he's feeling some shame and he says, well, this is all I can afford. I'm just a poor photographer. I'm not someone rich. Kind of contrasting him to Batman. I'm no Batman. Please have mercy. But hey, none of this matters. I'm going to show you who I really am. And so he slowly begins to take off his mask and he says, hey, I am Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man. And he opens up to her and says, so now you know, Cat, I've never revealed my identity to anyone before. I'm telling you now because I love you. And because from now on, we're going to share our lives together. And after he pours his heart out to her, tells her how much he loves her, how he wants to spend all this life with her, she goes, Spider? He says, yes, my darling. She says, your mask, please. Put your mask back on. My heart was broken for Peter. And he's like, what's going on? And she's like, you're just plain old Peter Parker. You're gross. I don't really love you. And he sees that. He's like, I love you. She says, I love you. Spider-Man, not Peter Parker. And so he's like, oh, totally emasculated. I get it. It's Peter Parker, I leave you cold. It's Spider-Man who turned you on. And then she responds to this, yes, I mean, who you are, where you live, that's not important, Spider-Man. Oh, just that you're in Spider-Man, that's what's important. Wearing that mask. You're my man of mystery, and you're the knight in excitement and death-defying adventure. And so, of course, he's heartbroken. I mean, you can imagine maybe you met someone online and you were chatting and you felt like, oh, this is the person. And you finally decide to meet. And the second they see you, they're like, gross, get out of here. And so he starts having this identity crisis. He's always seen himself as Peter Parker who puts on a Spider-Man suit. And so he's confused. Well, how can someone love Spider-Man but not Peter Parker? And it really creates this interesting scenario with who is this guy really? Is Peter Parker wearing a Spider-Man suit? Or is Spider-Man wearing a Peter Parker suit? I'm curious, down below, tell me, is Peter Parker the real person? Or is it Spider-Man? Well, he then goes on to keep thinking about this and what I think is a pretty big cope. I'm curious again, tell me below, do you think this is genuine or is Peter just coping with how the Black Cat has broken his heart? He says, well, every other woman I've loved as Peter Parker and basically I had to hide Spider-Man. But now I can just be Spider-Man and I just have to hide Peter Parker. And that's actually more exciting. Spider-Man is the more fun life. And we're going to have all this kind of fun. And he just comes across as this little whip puppy dog to me. I got to tell you, I'm not really proud of Peter in this issue. And in fact, at the end, they work together to stop some criminals. And she's kind of faint from that. And so he says, let me take you home now. My place is only a few blocks away. She's like, no, lover, please. My place, not your place. Ugh. And so instead of saying, what are you talking about? He begins to think to himself, right, where she won't have to be reminded of my boring other identity. It's Spider-Man she loves, not Peter Parker. And why not? I'm entitled to some happiness, to someone to love. If she doesn't want to know me from Peter Parker, so be it. And then he tells her, whatever you want, darling. I love you, Cat. And she says, and I love you my Spider-Man. Anyway, this was a hard book for me to read because it brought back all the memories of all the times I had been rejected by a girl in my past. And I'm so thankful that I have a wife now and I never have to worry about a girl rejecting me again. But thankfully, that wasn't the only book that I picked up for 50 cents, and here are some others. First of all, we have another Spectacular Spider-Man, number 82, and this is the first time the Kingpin meets the Punisher. And so, of course, they have a rich history in comics, and their conflict was one of my favorite parts of the second season of Daredevil, and so I'm super happy to now have this first meeting in comics. I also got Classic X-Men number 1, and this book has actually given me an idea for a new video series, and I want to hear from you if you would be interested. So there's a lot of comic titles like this one that are pretty budget friendly, but I think that are very cool for different reasons. So I thought about doing a new series where in each video I would highlight a very budget-friendly comic title and then talk about why it's a really cool one to add to your collection. So for example, there's a lot of neat things with this book, and I'm not going to give them all away because this would probably be the first title that I would do a video on, but I'll give you a sneak peek. So with this Classic X-Men title, you would always have a beautiful front cover. This is by Art Adams, but they also came with a fully drawn back cover. And so you get two beautiful pieces of art for the price of one comic book. And there's some other cool things that go on with this title. And so if you guys think it's a good idea to do a video series on this, I'll make sure this is the first in that series. Let me know in the comments below. All right, next up we have Defenders number 112, which contains the first appearance of Power Princess, Moonglow, and Nuke, who are all members of the Squadron Supreme. Now, if you don't know anything about the Squadron Supreme, they're basically spoofs of the JLA. And so Power Princess is basically Wonder Woman, Moonglow is basically Zatanna, and Nuke is basically Firestorm, and he's kind of mixed with Captain Atom. And there are some rumors that at least Hyperion, who's basically the Superman of the Squadron Supreme, but possibly other members of this team are going to be the second season of Loki. And this makes sense because these characters are from a different part of the multiverse. And so as we're exploring the multiverse in the next several Marvel projects, I think there's a good chance that we might see these characters, and if we do, a book like this, which has already climbed a little bit based on that speculation, could really go through the roof for a short time. Again, you have the potential to nail 3 characters here. All right, next we have Defenders number 89, and this contains the origin of Hellcat. And she has a very interesting history. So if you know her, she's Patsy Walker. And in early Marvel comics, she had a big role in a lot of their romance titles. Well, eventually she becomes Hellcat. And so Marvel thinks to themselves, well, how are we going to explain this character's history? You know, basically she's just this fancy, pretty girl, rom-com type character. Now all of a sudden she's a superhero. How can we get people to buy that? And so what you find out in this issue is that all of her previous appearances in those romance titles weren't actually the real Patsy Walker, but instead they were stories that her mother had written. Next we have Defenders number 107, which contains the first appearance of a cosmic entity named Mistress Love. And in addition to that first appearance, this is just a really cool skull cover, and so I'm glad to have it for that reason. And we have Defenders number 18, which is when Brunhild, I'm not sure exactly how you say her name, but who we usually call Valkyrie. This is when she first gets her own body. So up to this point, basically the Enchantress would put her essence or her spirit in some other person's body, kind of like how Thor was in Don Blake's body for a long time. Well, finally here, that comes to an end, and she has her own body for herself. And then finally, we have the Incredible Hulk number 291, which contains the origin of General Ross. So there you have it, a lot of cool books, including one that broke my heart. And again, I bought a lot more to fill some of these runs and for some other titles. I mean, when it's 50 cents, you can't lose much. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd appreciate if you'd consider doing so, liking, commenting, telling me what you think about some of these storylines. And thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.